Big man on campus. Question, Courtney, what is the moral of the story?
Well, when we decided to finally do the follow-up project of Motown Mafia, Big Man on Campus, so it's like the part two of the book that's already out. Thanks everybody for your support on Motown Mafia. So Motown Mafia, Big Man on Campus, it's kind of starting to just tell the rest of the family story. And from our perspective and the stuff you've seen with Pops or with Eddie Jr., and the rest of the stuff coming out, when you're living that life, you're just living that life. You don't really think of it that I'm involved in a major criminal organization and we're, international money launderers, or we're bringing in things from, bringing in the package from overseas. It's kind of like what the family does. So just like any family, in Motown Mafia in the original book, right? It's me growing up and then going, grade school, growing up in Southfield with the Temptations, the Four Tops, and we're in America's most prominent suburb and all of the above. But then by the time, the original project, Motown Mafia, Motown Mafia, Memoirs of a Kingpin's Kid, when that ends, we're just about to start high school. So this kind of picks up what was going on with the family going through high school, and then obviously Big Man on Campus. As I go away to campus and go away to college, and Pops comes home from the Fed joint, and it's basically time to start the family business, or my breaking into the family business, understanding the family business. Real moral of the story kind of is we were fortunate. I wouldn't want people to read our books and look at what happened and the success in Pops, because there were prices, to be paid. My father spent over 15 years of his life in the federal penitentiary. We had a lot of friends and family who died incarcerated. A lot of people got caught up in the streets. And then in particular, the fact that, Pops is home and my niece, his granddaughter, are off in Ivy League schools and all the legitimate businesses the family has now, that we were just very fortunate. And that that's really kind of the moral of the story. And if you're lucky enough to get there, but do not be in the game and think that you're going to be as fortunate as we are, because our story is really the exception, not the rule.
Okay, and that plays upon what your father said about the wealth and money. Nothing's more valuable than family.
In the end. And so going to your other follow-up question about the current state of the streets, or what advice would I give to people in the streets? Unfortunately, we live in this kind of situation where our culture glorifies senseless violence between young black men. They're going away to do time and giving the government 10, 20, 30 years of your life ain't no big deal. But that's crazy. There's the $5 calls every time people call you from the joint. There's the commissaries, there's the visitations. All of that plays a part in it. So when you hustling or you doing whatever it is you're doing to feed your family, you got to think of the consequences for your family, and you got to think of that there's got to be an end game. That the streets don't have no social security plan. And in our culture right now, what's going on is everybody get all gassed up about what's happening when you're handling the bag and the good times to be had. But it's about family, because it's going to be your family that have to deal with the consequences when the party comes to an end. And I assure you, if you stay in this game too long, the party will come to an end.
And do you have any regrets?
That we did not save more of the money. If you go back all the way from when the big man, when Eddie Jackson was running Detroit and Pops was working for him, running his thing, all the way through the 80s when Pops, the big man, come home, the runs we had then in the 90s, so whether it was the Caribbean run we had or the run with the Nigerians or with the Pakistanis, when you really look up, and then all the different cliques we was associated with and the money they was getting, the Demetrius and those guys were getting, and some other family and friends. Real kind of Wall Street kind of money came through this clique in Detroit's hand. And I'm man enough to say that, my regret is we didn't really save more, because although we have set ourselves up for generational wealth and, the generation coming up now, they don't know nothing about the game. They don't know nothing about hustling. It's all urban legends of what, you know, Courtney Jr. and Daddy and his dad used to do back in the day. But yeah, I really wish we'd have been a little bit more savvy. You know, we was human. We got caught up into it. You know, we threw away. I've thrown away. I'm not passing judgment on nobody. I've thrown away my fair share of money at strip clubs, and I've bought my fair share of jewelry that I no longer even wear, and all of that. But yeah, that would be really my only real regret.
And I remember once you told me about the ripple effect from the beginning of the run and the positive effects that came with it. What would you say are the positive effects, all in all?
I mean, as we'll go into in Motown Mafia, Big Man on Campus, you know, in my journey, I've had a chance to meet all kind of people and travel the world a couple times back and forth. So I got an opportunity to see how the real world worked. You know, obviously my main gig in this Big Man on Campus, Motown Mafia, Big Man on Campus is I'm a money launderer, right? Pops has got a couple international connections, and my main job for his business was getting that money to those people. We had to pay for the package, and to do that, you know, in the beginning it started off old school, flying the money out. Then it started to get involved with us dealing with businessmen, legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate businessmen, and exchanging the money with them. And before it was all said and done, we were dealing with investment bankers and stockbrokers. You know, and learning that everybody's in on the deal. These people, you know, you see these companies and you think they're all legitimate and square, but they're involved in it. So for me personally, to really get a real understanding of how the world worked, and Dad had enough that Pops, because he allowed us to get an education, me and my sister, when we decided to get out the game, when it just no longer made any sense, you know, the risk-reward equation. You know, because, and that's a whole other thing to talk about. You know, our whole goal was not for everybody to know what we was doing. The only people you want to know that you hustling is other hustlers. Because if other people outside of the hustler community know you hustling, you on your way to jail. You know, that all started to change. Now we live in a world where everybody want everybody to know that they in the game, and that's a dead end road.
Which brings us to the state of street culture, period. What are your thoughts?
Man, it's rough. It's rough. You know, we were doing some taping yesterday, and I found myself kind of mocking this whole gang thing, and the rappers want to be gangbangers and gangbangers on YouTube and the internet talking about. But then it hit me that I was doing an interview talking with my dad. And all jokes aside, a lot of the brothers out here, unfortunately, ain't having the opportunity of having a real OG or even a dad around to kind of give them that guidance. So that's what's got us all messed up, you know. In some of our other works, like Mind Right, Money Right, Getting Off Zero, all this stuff is available at BigBossFilmworks.com. We talk about the problem when the families start to break down. So, you know, I'm not going to be naive and say, oh, you know, because people be like, well, you guys were the ones out there selling drugs and breaking laws and, you know, but society got some problems. Our community got some problems because Lord knows they locked up Pops and them and things just got worse, not better. So this thing is real bigger, but, you know, when you got young men who will go on the internet and on social media and show their guns, show their drugs, it's you just that's called born to lose. So, you know, I apologize for mocking them, because if you really think that it's a good idea to shoot somebody because they wear green and you wear yellow, you stay on 61st Street, they stay on 62nd Street, that's because your world is small. But, you know, so it's a lot. And you know, and this whole, the big people in the music industry, they didn't corrupted what we were doing in the 80s and 90s. They repackaged it and sold it to this generation with no consequence, and now you kind of got some chaos. So anyway, you know, check out some of the other stuff we do at Big Boss Filmworks, you know, and hopefully this is some of the message that you'll get from Motown Mafia, Big Man on Campus, that some of your people who are locked up can read and get, you know, get the whole story of it. So, one of the real motivating factors beyond just, wanting to kind of, being a middle-aged businessman at this point and looking back and reflecting on life was with all the stuff that's been out there about the urban drug scene or street scene or the hustler scene. It always kind of, I think as Dr. Carl Taylor said in the documentary Motown Mafia, memoir, the story of Eddie Jackson and Courtney Brown. They kind of always put us brothers on the plantation, or that we're involved in just shoot 'em up, bang, bang, sold some dope on the corner. Well, as you know, Pops had international connections. So what I want to really kind of depict and flesh out, because I don't think anyone, or brothers or the African Americans, not to glorify it, it's just the nature of that business, that we were, my gig in the hustle was money laundering and dealing with bankers and businessmen and that whole kind of side of it. So I don't think anybody's ever really fleshed that out, as a part of it. I know, and I get if your connect is right down the street, then you don't have to worry about money laundering. You just take your man his money and you keep it moving. But so I think a lot of the audience is gonna find that kind of fascinating, and maybe even surprising that there were black organizations that operated on a high enough level where you actually had to have a money launderer involved in the hustle. So make sure you look out for us at Big Boss Filmworks at bigbossfilmworks.com. Email us at bigbossfilmworks@yahoo.com. Definitely check out our man Al Prophet and American Dope. Holler at us on YouTube. Make sure whenever you see us, hit the like and subscribe button, and stay in touch.